Like I said in my written review, Shadow of the Colossus is a fairly difficult game to review. On the one hand, I don't want to spoil anything in the game. Obviously there's going to be a small bit of that via the footage in this video review, but it shouldn't really be anything you haven't seen before. Still, if you want to go in totally clean, check out the written review, as that's entirely spoiler free. Now the second problem with reviewing a game like this is that it's basically a work of art. You can't really matter-of-factly review a piece of art, as art is by nature an expressionist form that invokes opinion. However, it is my opinion that Shadow of the Colossus is not only one of the best PlayStation 2 titles, but one of the best games released on any system to date. It is an astonishing piece of work that essentially challenges common game design paradigms. For instance, the game really only consists of 16 boss fights and the traveling between them. But at the same time, these are 16 of the best boss fights you'll find on any system, and the traveling to each boss reveals an exceptionally vivid world that draws emotion without actually containing much life, or even many points of interest therein. Just like Ico before it, Shadow thrives in its feeling of desolation and solitude. Your horse is really your only companion throughout the game, and even though you can't directly communicate back and forth with him, he becomes something of a close friend by the end of the game, someone who's been through thick and thin with you. It's partly this sort of purity that brings out levels of emotion usually unseen in video games that make Shadow of the Colossus so good. The main thing that makes Shadow so good is obviously the fights with the various Colossi. Again, it's kind of hard to describe exactly what makes these fights so great without spoiling anything, but I'll just say that if you think the first boss in the game, the one that's featured in the demo, is cool, then you should know you haven't seen anything yet. The game consistently gets better as a whole throughout the course of the game, to the point where after you finish off the last few Colossi, you'll wonder how you thought the first couple were so cool to begin with. Partly it's because the puzzle elements of the game gains bigger and bigger focus as you progress. Early on, it's as simple as climbing up the Colossi and stabbing him a bunch of times and waiting till he's dead. But later on in the game, the focus will shift to figuring out how to get onto him in the first place, and then attempting to navigate to its weak spots, which can often be a pain. For example, the last fight in the game took me over an hour the first time through, and out of that hour plus, I was probably only stabbing him for about 1 minute. A lot of the Colossi in the second half of the game are similar in this way, and then you'll actually spend more time figuring out just how to get on them than you will be attempting to actually kill it. While the Colossi are obviously the game's focal point, its art direction is virtually unmatched, and largely contributes to its overall experience. The land you're roaming about is mostly barren, with scattered bits of greenery or waterfalls tucked into corners of the world, but it's all blended together so perfectly that they don't feel so much like oddities but natural places of the land where Death's dry finger hasn't reached yet. It sort of leaves it to your imagination to figure out exactly why the land is the way it is, rather than forcing it down your throat like some convoluted backstory. There's so many aspects to this game that essentially define the word phenomenal that could go on forever, although at some point soon I'd have to start spoiling things and I really don't want to do that. So I'll just leave it simply at this. Shadow of the Colossus is easily one of my favorite games of all time, PS2 or not, and it's a mandatory playthrough for anyone who considers themselves a gamer.